Okay. Hey, we live. Go ahead on tag and share. It's gonna be hot. On. Good afternoon, Mary. Go ahead on the tag and share. Let's get everybody in. It's gonna be hot right here. Yvonne Stewart, go ahead on Yvonne and send a message out. Let them know we live right now. Want to say good afternoon and once again, welcome to, that's right, it's the Greg James Community Show right here over. That's right, the station that makes you say hallelujah. That's right, 95.3 FM. And we are at the last Wednesday of January. And listen to me, let me tell you, I am excited about today's show. Not only am I excited about today's show, but I'm excited about the introductions that I'm about to make to the well over 15,000 listeners that tune in to Hallelujah 95.3 FM and the Greg James Community Show. Well, I tell you, it's been an amazing month of January. It seemed like the month of January was operating like a sprinter running 100-yard dash, because guess what? We are at the end, and in comes the conscious chick. All rise, all rise. She has now made it in. Why don't you come on in and have a seat? And
I didn't be in the corner.
Yeah, we already live on air.
Oh dear.
And and we're here. So listen. First of all, I want to say good afternoon to Maud Lely. She's listening over in the Gadsden County area. Trish, how are you? Well, listen, how has your day been? I mean, it's been, I know you've been amazingly moving very fast.
Goodness, it's so much going on.
It is.
It's a lot going on. And I'm not the only one moving fast, right? Stuff is moving fast and people are, it's a lot. It's a lot. I know we're going to get into some of that today.
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. And joining us on the phone line is none other than the firm owner of Akbar and Thomas Law Firm, president of the NAACP. He is a potential, listen to what I'm about to say, a potential, somebody thought I was going to say running for office. No, he's a potential real co-host that's about to become official. Let me say good afternoon to attorney Mataki Akbar.
Tanya.
Hey. All right. Hey. And also in the studio with us is none other than a young man who I got to know very well after running for office.
LT Class B, LT 38.
How are you, sir?
Well, I'm thriving. Pleasure to be here.
Well, listen, we're excited about it, attorney. We're excited about you being on. Christy, we're here. And certainly this is about to become one of the hottest shows moving into the month of February, because Christy, you have been already given last year one of the hottest shows, The Conscious Chick, and you have been awakening the community when it comes to consciousness.
Need to wake up. I think that, and it's not that we're asleep. I think sometimes we're just kind of resting, and we're allowing things to just kind of float over the radar. And then there's so much noise, right? There's so many things that distract us from seeing issues, seeing things as they truly should be seen. And I think to a great extent, I hope and pray that the Lord blesses this broadcast to be able to help people understand that the grass is definitely more greener than it is brown. in regards to how we're addressing public policy on the local level and the state level. Now, ideologically, do we have some work to do? Yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think that we have to, a really important piece of the abundance mindset is to own the positive. And we have to be able to, just as we're inundated with negativity and with polarization, we have to be intentional about owning what is good. We got to be able to say what is good, to speak what is good, what's happening that is good, and making sure that we're letting people know what's working and that everything ain't, friction and conflict and drama. We have some really great things that are happening. And I think if we own that, we'll begin to see people really gather around truth and really appreciate truth tellers.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, that's the Conscious Chick, and also that's going to be joining us from February throughout the rest of the year. He's going to be on once a week, one Wednesday out of the week, and that's none other than Attorney Mataki Akbar, with such a busy schedule in and out of courtroom, advocating, speaking for NAACP issues, but yet bringing his voice to the Greg James Community Show once a month to talk about what he feels like is most important. And attorney, let's just say, Christique say, we got to be able to own the good. We got to be able to let people know that the grass is greener on the other side, but yet there is some places where the grass has withered away.
Use some water.
Some patches.
South side, making sure that the charge of the water, making sure that the water is still flowing through those communities. And I think that's our purpose. That's what we have to make sure that our leaders focus on that, and that's what I look forward to speaking on that on the Greg James Community Show.
And let me ask you this, attorney, because I think that you have said something that is so vital, and I think you've been at it for a while. When we talk about Freshtown area, when we talk about making sure that the water is flowing in that direction and the water is not contaminated, because if the water is contaminated, it really does damage to the fertilization of the area. And when we look at moving forward, it's a very important time in our community. How important is it now for your voice, along with the other voices that's going to be joining us, to really talk truth to power?
Important election of our lifetime. And I don't think this year is any different as far as looking at what's at stake, what's been at stake, what's been taken away, and the things that we need to pay attention to. Not only in what a lot of people say are like echo chambers, just amongst ourselves, but our voices out in the community, knocking on doors, talking to people, and not only listening, but also educating. So people can understand why it's important to be a part of this process, why it's important to go out there and vote, why it's important to not just look at a D or R or I or black or white or male or female, but look at the issues that affect people.
That's right.
Every single day. When it comes to the things that affect people every single day, like their utilities, like their rent, like their insurance, like getting pulled over for no reason. All of those things affect people's day-to-day lives, and we need to talk about it. We need to educate people about it, and we need to make sure that those voices, not just our voices, but the voices of the people, are heard in the elected body.
Absolutely, and certainly we're excited about you, and we're going to dive into the conversation, but also joining us once a month for the Greg James Community Show. Its show going to be called The Bender Breakdown. Kirk Bender, who is very much engaged in our community, and certainly we are bringing from all ends of the spectrum voices with different ideas, different ideologies. And the Bible said, come, let us reason together. And I think this table presents a different viewpoint on a whole lot of issues, but the Bender Breakdown, what can the 15,000 listeners look forward to when we talk about the Bender Breakdown?
They can look forward to honesty. That's the first thing that they can look forward to. No hiding the ball, just an honest opinion. And you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but it's an honest opinion from an honest perspective. And of course, we'll cover a variety of topics, some in depth more than others. But I think the main thing that you can look forward to is honesty and authenticity.
Wow. And then he's not able to make it here, but he's an attorney. He's a lobbyist. That's Jared Willis. He's going to be talking about politics, purpose, and people. And so we're excited about what we're getting ready to launch, because I feel the Bible says it like this: people perish for a lack of knowledge. It's not, Christique, that knowledge isn't there,
Right.
but because they have not been given access to the knowledge, then they find themselves withering. They find themselves in a place of thirst. They find themselves hungering for what needs to be known. So let me throw this at you, Kurt, and then attorney. I'd like to get your insight, and Christy, I'd like for you to just shock all of our consciousness. And I want to say this, attorney. We kicked off the Martin Luther King celebration, and the numbers of, I'm not talking about no one else. I'm not going to talk about the number of whites that were there. I'm going to talk about our community. Our community was not present. As a leader, and as you being one that fights for issues in our community, how did that make you feel?
You know, here's the first part of honesty. I was golfing that day. And however, my family was there. My family was there. I had some prearranged thing. It was a business meeting, and I was there golfing. So that's the first thing of honesty.
Wonderful. All right, attorney, your thoughts. Absolutely, absolutely.
It's a lot of the same things. You know, it's a lot of the same talk, even though this year was different. But I think people have gotten used to hearing the same thing, doing the same thing, and not being really good to come out and hear like stuff moving. So this year they missed the opportunity to hear, you know, Marlon Williams part, this opportunity to hear Chuck Hobbs, Darryl Hart, and some other and Professor Packer really come and motivate everybody and push everybody with real assignments of getting out the goals and getting involved and all those things. But I think it's up to us as leaders to give people reasons to come out. One, two, I think we need to stop infighting, because a lot of it has had a lot to do with infighting about who's going to do what and when and why and what time, and us really working together as community leaders, as community folks, and making sure that there's no confusion and that everybody can just come out with something worthwhile. And yes, you're going to hear some talk, but you're not going to just hear talk. You're going to hear assignment after the end of that talk, and you're going to know what needs to be done, and how it needs to be done, and when it needs to be done as well at the end of those talks. So I think there needs to be a shift, and that's what Christique is great with talking about. She gave me a call a few weeks ago, and it's like, look, here's what we need to do tonight, and gave me the assignment, and that's like, it needs to be real work done. So, and that's the same thing that we're seeing, not only at events like this, but also at protocols. As far as people getting out and people being active, because it's the same old thing. So I think there needs to, I don't blame the people, I blame the leadership.
Wow. I'm making two notes. I'm making one note. The infighting has to stop, and the leadership got to take on a different perspective. Conscious Chick, your thoughts, and then we're going to move on, because January has afforded us with an opportunity to do what we're doing, because we've seen so much take place in January that could have been resolved at a much earlier time. Your thoughts?
So first of all, you know, I'm an MLK chick, right? You know, raised MLK. I wrote a poem about MLK when I was in like the 6th grade, like a whole poem. You know, he had a dream, and his dream was that we would walk through this land hand in hand and be free. That was me in 6th grade, right? And so I am always, you know, I'm looking and learning in this season. I'm watching, I'm seeing all of the different groups. And I think that Mutaki speaks truthfully in the sense of what are we asking people to come to?
Wow.
What are we asking people to show up for? Is there a reason to show up? You know, when we think about the progressivism of the civil rights movement, they had a reason to show up. They had something they were dealing with strategically coming against. And so they showed up, right? And I think now we're just really, and we got reasons to show up now. We got some stuff going on. Don't act like things are, 100%
A-okay.
A-okay. However, I think that we have to be as leaders, and I indict myself too, right? I can't just, because leaders need leaders to pull on their conscience. They need people to be their conscience chick or they conscience dude. And we have to invoke leaders to say, look, this is the data. Home ownership in our community has railed back to pre-1970.
Wow.
Okay, we need to say, look, things aren't picking up in terms of value in our community, but guess what? We're being devalued and we're not being given the equity in our communities that's commensurate with what the market has to bear, because certain professionals aren't using their own standards to create that value or to reflect that value in their assessment. We need to, as a community, understand what we need to show up for. And I think that once we get to the point where we're educating, like he said earlier, the community on ecosystem issues, infrastructure issues, and how they relate to micro or people level realities, then people they ain't gonna show up, because what are they coming to show up for? What are they coming to march for? What are they coming to listen for? Right? Are they gonna hear the same thing that invokes their consciences but don't make a difference in their everyday lives?
Wow.
And that's on us, right? That's on us. So I take full responsibility as a community leader to say, hey, first of all, I don't care what you are, R, D, or I. We're going to sit down and talk. No walls exist here, because at the end of the day, people are people, right? And we need to care for people. We need to care for their interests. We need to care for their souls. We need to care for people. So those are my thoughts on MLK, because when I look at what the man died doing, I see that we have work to do.
Wow. Well, I want to say this, and certainly we want to give a applause to our attorney for the work that he has done.
Yes.
I mean, it was a difficult decision for him to, step in and take over the leadership with so much he has going on, but he made that sacrifice. And certainly when we look at where we are in this moment in time, Kurt, I want to direct this at you. When we look at where we are in this moment in time as people, as Christique has refuted, and as even attorney said, it's not about R, it's not about D, it's not about I, it's about people. When we look at where we are at this point in time with all of the issues of facing us, everybody on this panel, everybody that's going to be co-hosting the show is in the community. When you look at community involvement, community engagement, what do you see that's missing, especially in our community?
I think the basic building blocks of what you're doing when no one is looking. I think it starts there. I was driving by the road. I'm not going to say where or what. I don't want to identify anything. And I saw a dirty building that's very important to our community. I have a pressure washer at home. I said, let me go pressure wash that building so that I could improve the face of the building. A lot of people go there. It's simple things like that. I think that there's just so many different aspects, and we have everyone, think of it like a chorus. Everyone plays a different instrument in the chorus. And you can't look at someone playing the trombone and you're a flute player and say, man, I really want to bellow out like that. You have to pick something simple and start there and start compounding. These are conscious efforts that you have to make to build upon there on little things. You might be able to go and read all the Florida statutes that are coming out the next year and then go inform your next neighbors. But you could pick somewhere smart, somewhere small, and start there and just become a relative expert on something. If it's community beautification, it's driving by the Frenchtown through the South Side. You see something, it literally starts, and I say this with all authenticity, pick up some trash on the side of the road in a neighborhood that you want to make more beautiful, and start in simple places in that way.
Wow. Well, I'm going to say this to you, Kurt, and probably going to take you by surprise, by sharp, but we built a relationship after or during the process of you running for office and me running for office, but then you got engaged in the community and you began to see some of the needs, and You took on the role of mentoring a young man, and that role caused you and I to even draw closer because you say, hey, there are some things I don't know that I'm going to ask you to help me with this young man. And you begin to see the need for voices. You begin to see the need for fathers and men to be engaged in these young men's life. And in everything that you did to try to save, and yet it was not enough, but you put forth the effort. And that's what created you to say, I want to do more. Christy, Mataki, when you see this, when you hear this, it moves beyond a letter and it moves to impact the heart of people. And when you understand working with people, then you understand how powerful our voices must continue to be in this fight. Mataki, men are missing. What do we say? What do we do to help fill that gap?
Man, I think we gotta stay at it. So, and when I say we have to stay at it, I think the people who have been boots on the ground, like you and I, like, a lot of other people that we know, we have to stay at it and keep bringing people in. Keep, I guess, like put the mirror up to our community. So we can't continue to, want other people to fix our problem.
That part.
We can't continue to, like I said all the time, we can't beg the oppressor to get us out of oppression. That's up to us. So, put the mirror up, put the light on, and show that there are issues going on in our community that we can fix, that we can address, and keep bringing people in and try to help us fix them and address it. I wish I had like the answer for it. A lot of us would see a lot less stressed out if I had the answer for it. But we have to keep, like I said, keep exposing it and keep bringing people in and try to fill that gap.
Wow. So you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to Mataki. That same gentleman that we were talking about, I was in the detention facility and it was above my head. I gave Mataki a call and he answered and had a chat. So I could say in real life, he's really out here helping in all areas. So thank you again, Mataki.
Wow. So here it is. I'm talking about you and you're talking about him. And at the end of the day, these are the young men who are in our community that he could have took his practice anywhere, Christy, but he remained in the community. And I'm sure the community beats on his doors constantly. Mm-hmm. But yet it's still, we find ourselves feeling like the attorney that wears a different color suit and a different color tie can represent more and better. But yet, at the end of the day, when there's a need, this is the man that we're calling on. And the very moment that he decides that, hey, I can't write the check to support you this time, now we find ourselves saying things that and how do we stop this? This is the infighting. How do we stop it?
I think that there are things we just can't stop.
Wow.
Got to work through it.
I think they're just, I have my mind blown on a regular basis in community. I really do. I have my mind blown professionally too, in real estate. I think there are just some things, there's some programming we just can't counter. We have to build our legitimacy, our reputation, every transaction at a time. We have to have people committed to speaking the good, to promoting the good, to overcoming the negative, because negativity ain't just what you speak, it's the climate that exists that creates the cloud of shadow and of bias and of all those things. It takes you to the scripture that talks about principalities and talks about darkness and talks about things that are out of your control. And the hearts of people are out of our control. We can't make people think one way or the other. The only thing we can do is be consistent and pray that at some point people will see our consistency. And whether they hate us or love us, they'll say, God, I don't like them, but they're consistent.
Wow.
And that's all we can do because, at the end of the day, and I feel him and many who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into community. The calls come. I don't know how many bills, Mutaki, you ain't sent for help that you have given, right? Because people don't have it, but they still need the help, and you can't refuse the help, right? But there are some things that we can't control, and we got to be okay with that. We got to trust the Lord. We got to do good, and we got to trust that God can bring and bridge hearts and bring people into unity in the way that is necessary to bring about the change and impact. And we have to keep talking to each other. As different as our political views may be, I can call Mutaki anytime and have a conversation. He picks up. You feel me? We can have a real conversation, and I can either agree or disagree, but I can find the agreement in what he's saying, right? And so I think that it's incumbent upon us to, first of all, realize what we can't control, and to work on the things that we can, which is our consistency and our commitment to opening up and having the conversation lines open and flowing so that we can find each other where we're at.
Wow. Hey, well, listen, those of you who are tuned into the broadcast, we are talking with some of our upcoming co-hosts, and certainly we are excited about it. And we are getting ready to pause just for 1 minute. Hey, as a matter of fact, he is in the studio. He has just made it in the studio. All the way from court. But we're excited about our upcoming month, our upcoming shows. Why? Because we're going to have different voices. We're going to have different ideals. We're going to have different thought processes, because this is a crucial year. And I'm going to say it's a crucial year for Black folk. Can I just say it like that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's a crucial year for us, and it's crucial because our voices have to be heard in certain areas. And Christy, you know that as we look around at our communities, if we don't empower them, are they going to be there?
Well, we have to have a true definition of what empowerment is. I think that, if people think empowerment, we got a million different interpretations of empowerment. And I'd be interested in hearing what y'all's interpretation is, right? Because some things ain't empowerment, they're enablement.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to just kind of identify which is which. And I think that that's where the change, that's where the impact happens, is being on the same page with the definition.
Someone said, she said, we've got to be held accountable for our views and actions. Wow. So are we not holding our people accountable? Are we not holding leadership accountable? Or are we not holding our people accountable?
All would be above.
Really?
Let's put out this a positive note, right? Because I'm here, I'm in this like abundance mindset frames. I gotta frame things in that way.
Okay.
In the ecosystem of leadership, there's a responsibility of the governed to appeal to the conscience of the governing, right? And so
what you just said, because I want to make sure, because some of my listeners, I want to make sure they heard it. You said there is a consciousness of the governed to appear to the governing.
Appeal to the conscience of the governing.
Okay.
Because I think what we do is we let people get in office and then won't say nothing, right? And then it's a stank show, right? They don't have the support on the ground that they need to push the agenda that they need to push, so they lean on what's available, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? And I think that we need to understand the ecosystem of leadership so that we can understand how to effectively advocate. Because really, the polarization is turning people off. Nobody wants to be involved. Nobody wants to go to venues of dissonance. Nobody wants to be around no foolishness and no drama. They want to see impact and solution, period. And you see it everywhere you go. The conversation about vibes, the conversation about your circle, everybody's into this selective isolationism because they're tired of foolishness. And so it's up to the governed to appeal to the conscience of the governing to say, but the governed got to understand the ecosystem of leadership and the responsibility of every referendum, of every policy, of everything that exists to create order and create value
for years, the governing, those in office, those elected officials, have been able to get away with not having to concern themselves with the people. And I think that people have started waking up to a great extent, but it's still an echo chamber. Like, it's still a very small percentage of people who actually pay attention to what's going on day to day. And so what happens is that the people in office, they appeal to the checks, they appeal to the people that's writing the checks, and then they appeal to the people who they think are actually listening and paying attention. And what's happening is there's this larger group of people who are impacted by these policies, that's impacted by what's going on day to day. And now we're realizing that, wow, nobody realizes that I can't pay my utility bill, that I can't afford my insurance, that affordable housing is not what you're saying it is on paper, because I still can't afford that $300,000 house, even though you're selling this as affordable housing, or this $2,000 rent that you're selling as affordable housing, because the majority of people in that lower economic threshold still can't afford it. And we're not doing anything to appeal to those people. So now, so those who are paying attention now needs to reach back, because what we're seeing now, that all of the people that that we've left behind are now being affected, and we're seeing it. So that's the crime, that's the homelessness, that's all of those things that, because we looked over them and haven't had policies directed towards them, we're now feeling the brunt of it. I mean, but these are people that that we've been paying attention. We've always talked about affordable housing. We've always talked about poverty and crime and all those things. But now the people in leadership, so to go back to that, the people in leadership never really concerned themselves with the least of these, because they didn't want to. It was who's going to write me this check to get me back in office. But now it needs to be what voices are going to be heard to make sure that what I do in office affects the majority or the people that really needs it.
Wow. Kurt, your thoughts, man?
Yeah, my thought is, I think some of that is by design and some of it is by necessity. I always thought that lobbyists and lobbyism wasn't necessarily a good thing, but I'm not endorsing this system, but I'll try to explain it a bit. Is that you have X amount of bills that come across your desk. And I remember when I was in law school, I learned that most legislators don't read the bills. We happen to have a legislator come before us, and I asked her, I said, is it true that you don't read the majority of these bills? And she, not gonna say her name, she answered truthfully. She said, no, I don't. My staff summarizes these bills. So if you understand the process of, just let's say that lobbying and the big money is a good thing, just for the sake of argument, they put a lot of high level and mid level issues in front of legislators that the majority of people in the community don't turn an eye to, or they don't understand it, or they don't care to understand it. So there is sort of a good function that these checks and campaigns play, because it's people with special interest in very niche departments that want to move things forward.
Okay, so now I'm gonna have to stick a pin in you, because you said something that caught my attention. Special interest. It's people who have special interest. They have a special interest, but then there are people who are living in these communities that you come in and you advocate to for a vote who have a special interest. So that means what you just said to me is that the dollar takes more precedent over the individual who is trying to make it in their community.
That is the reality of it. I'm not advocating and saying it's a good thing, but it is the very much the reality of it.
And as we move forward, we can't let that reality remain, because that reality has turned into a nightmare for people who are living in these high crime areas where there's no opportunities, where we constantly see what we see.
And go ahead.
Finish your thought.
And it will continue to get worse. It'll continue to compound, because someone that may have, say, a local nonprofit, they have a special interest in something here, or let's just put it, say, an oil tycoon, they have a special interest in something that might be good. They write a good check to a legislator, and now they have that credibility that comes with the money to advocate for things that may be outside of their wheelhouse, and it continues to compound that way. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
And we got to look at the purpose.
Wow.
The purpose of the check is to get that person in front of as many people as they can, and but to get in front of as many people as they can in a way that they don't have to talk to those people or hear those people. And so you can write a huge check. So I can put a million flyers and we saw this process in every election.
Absolutely.
I could put flyers in this person's mailbox every single week. I could wish them a happy birthday. I could do all these things. So all of a sudden, because I've seen this name so many times,
Yep.
I never talked to them. I never heard from this person, but they see my name enough, they're going to vote for me against their own interests.
Against
Wow.
their own interest.
But the people like us again, it goes to the leadership because we do forums and there'll be 5 people in the audience. It'll be 50 people online watching it. But so what do we need to do? Because we can't expect people who don't know how they're gonna eat, don't know how they're gonna afford rent. I keep going back to that. We can't assume that those people who are concerned about living, care about this forum that we're having.
Absolutely.
That they care about these conversations that we're having about voting, and all we can tell them is like, go out and vote because your ancestors voted for it. No, come out and vote so we can help make your situation better. But we're not going to those people. We're assuming in our elite status that they should know, that they should just be a part of the process, that they should just understand, instead of us as leaders going out and educate them. And that's where we fail. I think that's where we fail. I think that's where, and that's going to be a mission of the NAACP. We talking to other organizations. We're going to knock on those doors. We're going to talk to people. We're going to educate them. We're going to say, not only it's cool that you registered, but now you need to get out and vote.
Right.
And not only get out and vote just because, you need to educate yourselves and understand what a city commissioner does, what a county commissioner does, what a state senator does, what a House of Rep does. Like, what are those things that's going on that's affecting your everyday life and why your situation isn't getting better?
And for those of you who are tuned into the broadcast, this is why the upcoming Wednesdays from now until the end of the year is so important, because his voice is like Attorney Pataki Akbar with his own 1 hour once a month. His voice is like breaking down barriers with Bender is important. His voice is like the conscience chick. His voice is like Jared, who's going to be speaking to what needs to be addressed to help us as we move forward. Just this morning alone, I was over in the Joe Louis area, and I was educating people about the ACP program with figures and others. And people are saying, well, you know, I would love to get a free phone, but I'm having trouble paying my rent. Really? And then the thing that was disturbing to me is to be able to meet people who, I hate to say this, but you were able to go through COVID without rent payments, but now you got to pay the piper and you don't know how you're going to do it. So now you're dealing with evictions.
Listen, I go back to what Attorney Akbar just said, and the blame is on us to a great degree. You know,
When you say us, help me with that.
So, you know, within particularly the Black community, the strength of the Black community. Let me just bring it home. Okay, black community. All right, we had an ecosystem of delivery based on an understanding of deficits. Right, there was a clear delineation between what we had and what we were being denied, and so the trusted voices in the community advocated. They were given a responsibility to advocate. But Mutaki didn't have to advocate. He could work to pay for the advocates to get out of jail. He didn't have to advocate. He could go do what he had to do so the advocates could do their work. But there was an agenda that was understood by everybody.
So we don't have that now.
The deficit of folks who don't know was very low in proportion to the deficit of folks that now don't know. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the proportion of the don't knows to the knows. And what happens is that we create ecosystems of elitism in our community. We create saviorisms among our community that take it upon themselves as opportunities to be voices for people without being informed by people. All right, because that delivery is missing. That ecosystem of delivery is missing. That call and response is missing. And so I think the onus is on us, because people united will never be defeated. We had that. Now nobody understands what we need to be united for. So when we talk about the over 30,000, almost 30,000 households in Leon County that's going to be disconnected as of April 7th from ACP, meaning that people who were getting a federal benefit to have accessibility to internet service on a monthly basis for employment, for their children to do homework, for their ability to be able to access opportunity online, they will be
Disconnect.
either, well, the benefit will end and they will be either disconnected due to non-payment, or they will have to come up with the additional $30 a month that the benefit's not covering. We know, Butaki and I and you and everybody here, $30 is a big deal to some households. In fact, internet connectivity is the first thing to drop. The phone bill is the first thing to go in families experiencing scarcity on a chronic basis. So when we're talking about this, my question is, why is this issue not being raised? Why is it that the legacy of the internet emergency internet program, which became the affordability connectivity program, we weren't on this at the first onset? Why is it that we're finding ourselves with over 30,000 households within Leon County? That's a third of the households. It's 87,000 households within this MSA, this metro market service area. 87,000. 30,000 of them are getting this benefit. Is that a third or over a third? Right at a third are going to be experiencing a deficit of benefit if Congress does not act.
So let me ask you this, and then Kurt and Mutaki, you all can jump in, because I heard you say something, and I think that when we look at our communities, we talk about trusted voices.
Mhm.
When we look at our communities, it's apparent that there are more churches than anything else in our community. I'm probably going to lose some friends.
Come on, Pastor.
Don't lose nobody. Don't lose nobody.
At the state that we're in, I think we're in a crisis. We're in a state of an emergency. And how is it that the voices that we trust on Sunday or Saturday are not voices that are speaking out throughout the week?
I think you can answer that, Pastor.
Because I mean, if our communities are going to engage, and here's the word, and be empowered, and let's talk about what that looks like, empowerment. What does that look like, Mutaki? What does that look like, Kurt?
Well, so and I think this goes back to something that we were saying earlier about we got to fight through it. I think some things we just got to fight through. So those who are not just aren't, but those who are, those who we need to those who we need to support, those are the people that we need to empower. And those are the people, if they can convey our message or speak to the people in some kind of way, those who are actually doing the work, that's who we need to support. Their churches need to be full on Sunday, and we need to be seeing where they're going on Monday, and not worry about or talk about who not doing anything, because that's a waste of time and energy.
And I think we spend more time talking about who's not doing, and the people that are doing have to deal with more criticism because they are doing.
Right.
Okay.
I like that thought that Mutaki said. It's the thought of champions. Like when you think of a champion, it's someone that fights for those who can't. Many of us here, we may have a better circumstance where we can spare the $30, or we can dedicate some of our time to go and help out in the community, and that's being champions. I remember Dr. Willie had a conversation with them. He said there's two types of people. There's the kings and there's the kingmakers. I think that not everyone should focus on trying to be a king. Find someone that you can empower, an individual that you can empower. And that comes with a lot of selflessness, because you won't get the spotlight, and that's fine. If you see your brother doing something good or your sister doing something good, don't try to recreate the wheel because you think you can have a catch. Give them the blueprint that you were thinking and empower them to have a broader, bigger reach. I think in small tweaks like that can be very helpful, because otherwise we're going to continue to have a bunch of siloism, and that's never a good thing.
So here we are as we prepare for, I feel like, one of the most critical times in our history. I mean, let's look at it. I mean, we have a mindset that says, you can be under 90 indictments and you can still get support. Don't even let me get on the investigation as a black person.
Or serve your time and
I mean,
peace.
so the infighting among us is what's damaging us.
Yes.
I mean, so if we're going to wake people, if we're going to challenge people consciousness, if we're going to break down Bender and Mataki, if we're going to make announcement to people who look like us, how do we get them to see that until we put aside the differences, we're never going to unify, and it won't be United States, it will be divided communities constant.
Well, I mean, but that's what we gotta ignore the noise. It's noise. Like the talk is noise. What you doing, what you didn't do, what you did in the past, that's noise. The arguing and the yelling and the fussing, that's noise. Because you yelling over here, you talk about people over there, but you don't have an agenda here.
Hello.
These people still ain't eating. We're still struggling. I look out my window every single day in Frenchtown and I see folks struggling, literally struggling. I have conversations with these people. We need rehab. We need transitional housing. All of these things. We see these buildings going up, these apartments going up. What's happening with our folks? And those conversations are going on, and we're not doing the work. So let the negative folks talk. Give them their own center. Give them their own radio station. Give them their own. You should give them an hour so they can just talk their mess for an hour and leave us alone while we do the work. Because we can't get caught up in the negativity while we try to do this work.
And Christine, I'm gonna say this, and you said something, and I saw you the other day. Both of us were coming out of a trial, double homicide. Young man got found guilty, but this is what disturbed me. 22 years old, found guilty, but had committed 14 felonies and had never been incarcerated.
He wasn't from up here. That don't happen.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. But at the end of the day, the reflection of the fact that over in Jackson County, you and I both seeing this every once a month, but juveniles are standing there with 8 open cases, 7 open cases. Eventually, the one case that's going to send them away probably could have been avoided if we had something in place. Everybody's making noise about we need to do something, but nobody is doing anything. And I walked away from that murder trial with the family of a loved one who lost their lives. I was hurt, but I was even more hurt because here's a kid who had 14 felonies, but his 15th felony is going to send him away for the rest of his life.
He took the life of
It took the life of a kid who was in college. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm getting ready to do something at our church. I'm not worried about what the DOE say. I'm not worried about what the city say or the county. I'm not worried about what the state say, because we cannot keep having these kids hanging out in the street with guns without opportunity. Mm-hmm. So if I get in trouble, or if I get wrote up for not, then that tells me that at least I got your attention. Mm-hmm. Community got, oh wow, we got a caller calling in. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air. Good.
But it's so many different requirements for us to even get. What about those mothers that have so much stuff that we don't? Why we have to go through so much? 3 times of rent, so you can rent a place. 3 kids, I'm taking a savage.
Wow. So here we are, and it's amazing that you're calling, because here's the situation that I was in this morning, and I had asked the young man where I was at in the Joe Louis area, how many of these residents are you helping or moving into becoming homeowners? And just like she just said, there's so many obstacles until it becomes depressing. Can you imagine someone having a job? Once they get an increase on their job, The next thing, an increase for a living. So the next thing they decide, well, guess what? I'll quit the job. So here's someone who's saying, I want to get out. I want to become a homeowner, but there's so much at stake. I think we're being, and I'm going to say this, and Carla, we thank you so much. And please inbox me because I want to follow up. I'm going to say this back to what Mataki said. The oppressor keeps oppressing, and there's no way to overcome.
I don't know.
Ah,
I'm about to challenge that sentiment
Let's
on
go.
on this point. I think that Mutaki and Kurt said something very key earlier. We have to balance the things we can't control with the things that we can. The real estate market is a market.
okay.
We're trying to help people be successful because we know what the results of home ownership are, particularly on families. It changes the trajectory of mindset of children.
Oh, absolutely.
You see people who own homes, 97% of their children graduate from post-secondary education. I can't say that is just an incident, right? That has to be some type of congruency with ownership, right? So I get the desperation because it exists in a system, okay? Okay, so you talk to a realtor who became a realtor in 2003, right? When they were giving money away, giving loans away. If you could fog up a mirror, you could get a loan. They were making up credit. They had people that were signing, they were paid credit signatories, people getting houses. Probably here in this area and among African Americans, 60% of those homes went into foreclosure. Why? They had no skin in the game. Why? They didn't qualify in the first place. Why? Because of the way they qualified, they qualified for the worst lending product out there, right? So with home ownership, and people are gonna just burn me at the stake when I say this, but I've seen it, and this is where I'm at. Home ownership is not a right, it's a privilege. And so you've got to do what you've got to do to be in that position. Now, do they have really aggressive programs to increase home ownership? Absolutely. What we're dealing with here in Tallahassee, and we'll talk about this on the 13th at the forum we're holding at FAMU School of Architecture, we're going to talk about what's really going on. Everything ain't gentrification. Some things are just market scarcity. It ain't enough. It ain't enough places for people to buy and own. People have portfolios. People don't know this, but rents are securitized. They're being traded on the stock market. You have people that have whole portfolios of properties that based on performance, which is why the rent goes up every year because you have to show consistent profitability. They're being traded as stock securities on the stock market. That's what's going on in our local market. You got a huge economy being speared by a highly successful sports tourism agenda here. And that is created a power vacuum for people to micro invest and do Airbnbs. These people are making minimum 300% more than they would if they rented on a long-term 12 months. I see you shaking your head because you know, right? So the solution here for home ownership for our most vulnerable populations, right? Because they still need a house. They probably got a couple of kids, so they need 3 bedrooms. They don't need 2, right? They can't live in the dwellings, all right? They can't live in no tiny house. Right? They can, some of these land trust models, they're good at they make sense in certain places, but in Leon County they may not make sense. You do have programs like Habitat for Humanities, but everybody doesn't want to buy through that program. So the options are very slim.
Right.
So we have to face the fact that our market has scarcity in it. Right? And we have to embrace that. We have to embrace that. And on the one side, we can say the oppressor have a presence, but I will tell you this: we have added over 183 new Black home buyers in Southside since 2020.
Okay.
And they have purchased in the Southside due to focus efforts of organizations led by African Americans to create venues of home ownership accessibility.
What I said was we depend on the oppressor to take us out of oppression.
Okay, say that.
Which means that we need to as a community build ourselves out of it. And the example that Christine just gave at the end, I think is an example of us as community doing things intentionally in order to pull ourselves out of that. So for the young lady who called, I think there needs to be more programs, more education, more
Absolutely.
urban leagues, NAACPs, even
Churches.
churches, like they have to educate people like her, to find resources for people like her, and to even lobby for her to go to the city commission, county commission, and say, "Hey, I know you have this program over here. It's not helping this lady here or people like her." And let's help get
But then I have to say that the oppressor
Mhm.
keeps oppressing.
Well, sometimes we are our own oppression.
Okay, so here we go now. Now let me bring this in, and Mataki, please don't get upset when you do this. So when Mataki and I talked about some time ago, man, let's figure out how to bring people together who have finances so that we can keep this property within the Frenchtown area, so it won't keep being bought by big developers. The problem that we have with the infighting is we can't trust Kurt to oversee raising $1 million and creating a group that buys property within the area so that we can still control our neighborhoods. This young man looked at buying a piece of property that perhaps they gave him the runaround on, because guess what? We can't let no black man buy this piece of property. And guess what happened later? It was sold. And now the whole block is being cleared off. And now the property and the neighborhood won't look the same. But if he'd have brought the property, that wouldn't have happened. So we as a people and churches have to become more engaged to empower, because that's where the resources are. Wow. Okay.
And one thing I think we have to be careful for too is not to fall into traps, because not everything that appears as an opportunity can be. In the late 1998, 1999, when they repealed Glass-Steagall and Clinton wanted to get rid of redlining, kind of more to Christine's point of the realism is that in the market, there are certain policies that are in place to protect stakeholders and interest holders. In hindsight, and I think many people saw it ahead of time, is with those, paper bag outside the bank, low interest rates, is that it was foreseen that there would be a lot of foreclosures and that would get snapped up lower. Now, I put on my tinfoil hat and I would say that was actually part of the plan.
Yep.
Is that you can, these below near zero interest rates, and it appears good that you dump your money and you're paying into these homes, and you're just lowering the initial principal, not that much, high interest rate. And then sometimes back then is also, we get into a home, but now it's an adjustable rate mortgage, and you don't know exactly what that is. And someone that's very savvy could see that in 10 years, in 5 years, there's going to be a large amount of homes in the market. But just getting in there isn't also just the end all be all. Is that just have to be wary and educated on that as well.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of work that we've got to do, and I certainly want to thank you all for just joining us on the last Wednesday of January, because in the month of February, you're going to be hearing from each one of these young men and this young lady as a co-host for a powerful show that's going to be happening. There's so much more we could have talked about, but we're running out of time. We're going to be getting into politics and elected officials, and we're going to talk about candidates. I think Mataki and we're going to be doing some grades. I mean, like when you go to class, either you're going to get promoted or you're going to get detained. And I mean, some folk grades just not make it. And it's not about, and I mean, we love to say this, but I mean, just because you look like me, that don't mean what that don't mean, Chris. What that don't mean.
all skin folk and kids.
So we gotta open up and we gotta look at what's being said and what's being done. I mean, because I want to know where my representative at or my commissioner is. I mean, with all the stuff that's been going on in my community, I've been looking. Oh, I've been looking. Okay, I've been looking. We're going to be talking about policies. We're going to be talking about legislation. We're going to be talking about what's happening at the city. These shows in the near coming weeks are going to be informative, and we want you not only to be a better listener, but we want you to be a better citizen so that you can do the right thing at all times. With the last closing remarks, what is it that you want to say, Kurt?
I think it's important. A little bit of homework. What if someone's to ask you, what's your favorite 3 community organizations and what do they do? Do you have an answer for that? And I think looking for that will start to open your eyes a little bit. Can you answer what are your favorite 3 community organizations and what do they do, their mission and their purpose?
Wow. What are your favorite 3 community organizations? What do they do and what's their purpose? That's something to think about because they need your help. They need your support. But if you don't know who they are, you can't help them, nor can you support them. So that's your homework for next week. Mataki, closing remarks, man.
I'm just happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation over the next month.
Wow. All right. And I'm sure they're going to be fired up just like he doing closing arguments in the trial. So you better get ready. Conscious Chick.
Stay tuned.
Soon. But listen, it's been an amazing. Certainly want you to go ahead on and share. Those of you on our Facebook page, somebody just said homework. Want you to go ahead on and share. And certainly big shouts out to 95.3 for the platform. Hey, until next week, and listen, you all stay tuned. I want you to mark February 13th. We're going to talk about that next week. You got to be present. You got to be a part of the conversation. You got to get your way to FAMU campus. We're going to tell you how to get there, but just mark your calendars. Until then, hey, y'all be blessed. Have an amazing, amazing rest of the week. All right, listen, we love you all, and we signing off for now.